The sky over Combe Martin was thick with low-hanging clouds, casting a dim, oppressive light over the village. The mourners, dressed in black, had left Usticke House hours ago, making their way to St. Peter's Church for the funeral of Squire Jonathan Usticke. Inside the grand but aging manor, only one person remained: Mrs. Eleanor Finch, the late Squire's housekeeper. She had served him faithfully for nearly 20 years, managing the house with quiet efficiency, overseeing the staff, and ensuring that everything ran as smoothly as the Squire liked. Now, the house felt emptier than ever, its great halls filled with nothing but silence and shadows. She sat in the sitting room, hands folded in her lap, waiting for the mourners to return. The fire crackled gently in the hearth, offering little comfort against the cold feeling creeping into her bones. But it wasn't just grief that unsettled her. It was a sense of unease, a feeling that something was not quite right. And then the door creaked open. Eleanor turned, expecting to see one of the servants. Her breath caught in her throat. A man stepped into the room. Not just any man. Squire the ghost in the chair. The sight of him sent a wave of ice through Eleanor's veins. He was exactly as he had been in life, his sharp, watchful eyes scanning the room, his thin lips pressed together in quiet contemplation. He still wore his favorite dark velvet coat, and his silver pocket watch gleamed at his waist. But he was dead. She had seen his body herself, laid out in his coffin just yesterday. She had watched the undertakers close the lid. She had stood at the window that morning and seen the black-plumed horses pull his funeral carriage away. And yet, here he was, walking across the sitting room, as if nothing had changed. Eleanor could do nothing but stare, her hands gripping the fabric of her dress as her master approached his usual chair, the large, her-backed leather armchair by the fire. He sat down, sighing as though he had simply returned from a long day of riding across the moors. Eleanor could not move, could not breathe. Then his deep voice, calm, measured, broke the silence. "I thought they would never leave." She gasped. This was real. A conversation with the dead. Eleanor's first instinct was to flee the room, flee the house, flee Combe Martin entirely. But her years of service had trained her. Well, she had never run from the Squire in life, and she would not do so now, even in death. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Esther, you are supposed to be at rest." Squire Usticke leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers against the armrest, as he often did when deep in thought. "Rest," he repeated, as though the word amused him. "I have rested enough, Eleanor. They have put me in the ground, sealed the coffin, read their prayers. And yet," he gestured vaguely at the room, "here I am." Eleanor swallowed. This was not the man she had seen lying pale and still in his funeral clothes. This Squire Usticke was solid, real. Yet, in the flickering light of the fire, his edges seemed hazy, as though he were not entirely here, not entirely whole. A shudder ran through her. "Why have you returned?" she whispered. The Squire tilted his head. "That is the question, isn't it?" For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the soft crackling of the fire. Then he spoke again, quieter this time. "There is something I have forgotten, something unfinished." His sharp eyes turned to Eleanor, studying her as if expecting her to provide the answer. But she had none. The unfinished business. Eleanor tried to steady her breathing. If the Squire had returned, it must be because of something left undone. Had he left debts unpaid? No, he was meticulous with his accounts. Had he wronged someone? Perhaps. The squire had been a proud and sometimes ruthless man in business. Or was it something more personal? She hesitated before speaking. "Is it your will, sir?" she asked. The squire's expression did not change. "No." Eleanor frowned. "Then, is it the house?" The firelight reflected in his dark eyes, and he gave the smallest nod. "The house must remain as it is." The words were calm but firm and order, as if he were still the master of the estate. Eleanor suddenly understood. The squire had always been fiercely protective of Usticke House. It had been in his family for generations, and he had spent his entire life ensuring that nothing changed, that it remained as his ancestors had built it. And now that he was gone, would his heirs sell it? Would they tear it apart, modernize it, let it fall to strangers? Eleanor's stomach twisted. "Sir," she said carefully, "the house cannot remain unchanged forever. Your nephew will inherit it now. And he may have plans." The squire's expression darkened. "Then he must be stopped." The fire flared suddenly, the flames leaping higher as if responding to his words. Eleanor flinched but held her ground. "That is not within my power, sir," she said, forcing strength into her voice. The squire exhaled, long and slow. For a brief moment, he looked tired. Then he nodded once. "Perhaps not." He turned his gaze back to the fire, staring into the flames as if seeing something beyond them. A long silence stretched between them. Then he spoke again, this time almost to himself. "I suppose I must find another way." Eleanor's blood ran cold. What did he mean? But before she could ask, the squire took a deep, final breath, and the room grew colder. The fire dimmed. The leather chair creaked as though a great weight had lifted from it. And when Eleanor looked again, he was gone. The haunting of Usticke House. The mourners returned later that evening, but Eleanor told no one what had happened. She stayed on in Usticke House, as she had always done, managing the estate as best she could. But she was never truly alone. Sometimes, in the dead of night, she would hear footsteps in the sitting room. Sometimes, the chair by the fire would creak when no one was there. And sometimes, when the wind howled outside and the fire burned, Loshi would catch the faintest scent of the squire's old pipe tobacco drifting through the halls. The house had a new master now, but the old one had never truly left. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, follow, subscribe, and comment below.